Thanks for tuning in to another Sacred Mountain Battle Report. Today, it's a little unusual battle report for us because the commentary is going to be off. It's a 3 versus 3 Napoleonic battle report of LaSalle. It's a fictional battle occurring sometime around 1809, I think. Maybe we decided 1813, between France and her allies, France, Saxony, and Bavaria, versus the alliance of Russia, Austria, and Prussia. It was a great day. We had a couple different victory conditions that I'll go over in the video. The video is going to be mainly me narrating over photographs and some live action video, but mainly just not really to teach the game, but just kind of get a flavor of what happened. Anyway, it'll be quick and I hope you enjoy it. 3 versus 3 LaSalle battle report, and I'll kind of go over the mechanics of how that worked. All right, thanks for watching.
This is our 4 by 12 battlefield. The portion that's closest to the viewer, I'm calling the west side, the east side farthest from the viewer, the left edge, the north side, and then the right edge, the south side. Anyway, the objective for the game at game end, which we had a time set for end game, was victory points. The heights, there's a kind of a mountain in the middle of the table that's separated by 2 rivers and a objective, neoprene objective circle there. That was worth 2 victory points. The western and eastern towns also worth 2 victory points, and then the bridge crossings where it went over each river on each side of the mountain was worth 1 victory point. So a total of 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 victory points available at the end of the game. Now the way that we did game end is we decided on a time at which everyone had to leave, or at least the first person had to leave, and then we said the last turn would start 1 hour prior to when everybody has to leave, or at least the first person has to leave. Also, we did sudden death victory, so if one side lost a third of their battalions, that side would instantly lose. We only had a couple of advanced rules, actually only one advanced rule for this game, and that was bridge assault. So you could assault any one of those bridges in march order. So as you can see, the rivers really kind of divide the battlefield into 3 different battlefields. This was mainly just for convenience, so we could play 3 different battles, but still have one commander-in-chief in charge. And the commander-in-chief on the Allied side was Austria and Bavaria, both of which are deployed on the far end, and I'll show you that in just a second. The commander-in-chief's role is to tally the momentum and to award extra momentum that was won in the skirmish phase, as well as choosing when to and when not to interrupt. Here's the Austrian order of battle. They have 3 brigades. The first brigade were just musketeers with a foot gun, rolling 3 dice, hitting on 4s. The second brigade has some shock troopers in there, as well as 2 artillery batteries, and the third brigade is 2 regiments of normal cavalry and a horse gun. We found out through the course of the game that there were some distinct advantages of the Allies and some distinct advantages of the French and her allies. And what I'll point you at is the Allies have a distinct advantage in the weight and number of shots of their artillery, and the French have a significant skirmish advantage. So the French could gain more momentum throughout the game, but be seriously hampered by the guns of the Allies. Next is the Austrian Corps or Army. The Austrians have 3 brigades as well. The first brigade being, they are quite an elite force. They are all veteran infantry. I believe that they have one light battalion in each. And they have absolutely no cavalry, which is a little unusual, but that was what the Bavarian player wanted to do, so that's what I gave him. Um, and if you'll notice, though, that he has a distinct skirmish advantage. I think each of those is 3. On the first brigade are all 3 skirmish value, and then the others are either 1 or 2, being mostly grenadiers. Next, in the central portion of the battlefield on the mountain with very little terrain, you'll find Prussia on the north side versus France on the south side. This turned into quite a slugfest and actually may have played a pivotal role in the victory that you'll see a little later. Now on to their armies. The French have 3 brigades, the 3rd Brigade of Cavalry, which are actually Lancers, and Lancers allow you to re-roll misses versus squares, which is quite powerful in the basic game. It's changed a little bit in the advanced game, if I recall correctly, but we were playing basic. And then 2 units of, I believe they're all guard. They may be guard line infantry, and you can see the cross sabers allow them to attack in full force in mass formation without paying. They don't pay a complication with those cross swords. The Prussians also have 3 battalions, and they also have the shock infantry that won't pay complications for charging. Notice they also have heavy guns for their foot batteries. So these guys ignore cover, which is really important in a town, but unfortunately the CNC put the Prussians on the heights. But I guess that's so they could probably shell either town. That would be my guess of what they were trying to do. Um, and then they have that 3rd battery of 2 brigades or regiments of cavalry, and they deployed, as I noted, on the Central Heights. I should also note that the Prussians have a unit of rifles there in the bottom left-hand corner that'll help them out in the skirmish phase. Back to the main battlefield, we have Russia deploying on the north side, and their main adversary is going to be Saxony in the south. The Russian order of battle is 3 battalions. They opted for some heavy guns, and they do have an asset up there in the upper right-hand corner, I believe are grenadiers that they can add. Maybe they're Jaegers. And all of their troops, most of their troops are resilient with that white flag, so they always rally on a 3+. What you'll see here in the Russians, it's written into the basic game, is their artillery pieces roll 5d6 versus all of the allies, all the French and her allies, 3d6 per gun, and they chose a heavy gun. So the Allied guns oftentimes will roll 4d6, but the Russians 5d6. Man, it was pretty brutal. Here's the Saxon order of battle. Nothing really surprising here. Pretty good at skirmishing. We've got 1 light brigade in each, or battalion in each, and 1 grenadier battalion in each of the first 2 brigades. And then I actually kind of stepping away from normal Saxon heavy cavalry. I just chose 1 cavalry regiment with some horse guns because they've just kind of been underperforming, or at least I've been using them incorrectly in Napoleonic battles. I think I'll oftentimes run out with the cavalry instead of just kind of keeping them back to smash up any fragile infantry battalions that are available to me. But anyway, the Russians had a really interesting use of their cavalry in this game that we're going to get to turn 1 right now. One last thing I wanted to say is that during deployment, each player can only bring on one brigade, and then one brigade comes in via the road on their edge each turn thereafter until all brigades are deployed. From west to east, here's the Saxons coming in on turn one, hiding behind that town. The French have charged in with a single brigade of cavalry, and the Bavarians have really pushed into that eastern town, trying to occupy that for the victory points. Next, we have a view from the northern side. This is the Russian side pushing into the central village. There are the Russians exerting their guns on the poor Saxons there, and their last battalion coming in. I guess this is the end of turn three. The French have their battalion in, their cavalry still pushed up, and I believe the Allies won initiative that turn, and so they had were able to push into the town. There, those are the Austrians pushing in from the north to fight the Bavarians in the town. This is the western portion of the battle. The Russians were really aggressive with their cavalry coming in and really making the Saxons square up right at the very outset, really pinning the Saxons into their own backfield. This is after the Prussians have expended some momentum and they've come in to try to get some cover behind a hill. And you can see the initial maybe strategic plan is to bring some more artillery to bear along with the Austrians onto the Bavarians who suffer for cavalry to try to take those two victory points and perhaps the bridge as well on the eastern portion of the battlefield. Unfortunately, the Prussians lacked for experience in the game of LaSalle that you'll see a little later. Nevertheless, they were able to bring some guns to bear with some significant bounce through in the Bavarian ranks. Again, the western portion of the battlefield. You can see the cavalry on the east-west road of the Russians, along with their artillery, and my Saxons cowering in squares and trying to hide behind any kind of cover they can for those quite superior Russian guns. And then on the far north side, you can see his next battalion coming in to fight the Saxons. This is about turn two, I believe, because the French cavalry have redeployed, moved westward, and you can see I guess this is actually turn three because you can see a Prussian cavalry regiment coming in from the north. You can see the French infantry have moved up and taken the central heights and have a artillery battery deployed on their left. The French lancers are set up for a charge versus the um, line infantry of the Prussians, but the Prussians were able to use use their general in the intervention phase, and squared up to defend against that potential charge. And although Lancers are okay, they still aren't very good against squares. I mean, it is dangerous. And this is the French players and the Prussian players' first time playing LaSalle, first or second time, and first or second time playing Napoleonics in general. Nevertheless, they had a great time. Next, on the eastern portion of the battlefield, you have the two commander-in-chiefs facing off against each other. We're looking from south to north. We've got the Bavarians deployed in a field to prevent that bounce through that can be so deadly. Those are standing crops, not giving any cover, but at least preventing the bounce and not cause. I don't recall if they would cause any complications or not. Nevertheless, the Bavarian has tried to offer battle outside the town that he now holds with garrison troops to the Austrians, and it looks like the Austrians have taken the bait, but there are three countries' guns bearing down, or two countries' guns bearing down on those poor Bavarians out in the field, not only from the Austrian guns on the height on the upper portion of the screen, but also the Prussian guns just out of the picture on the left. Here again, the western portion of the battle, and you can see this long line of Russians fighting through this western town with the Saxons line extending from the town to the backfield. Here's the French firing their batteries into the cavalry there, and then the Prussian squares letting loose into the impending Lancer charge. The French have moved up, and we're trying to avoid any interruptions. Is why those cavalry have not yet charged, but they volleyed, and it'll be the French turn to get destroyed by those Lancers or squares. Here again, we are in the western portion of the battle. You can see the Russians. I was able to push back a lot of the Russians here at this point, and uh, they end up having to redeploy a little bit once I brought some guns to bear on their cavalry and brought my single unit of cavalry out to potentially flank them. But really, the Russian use of their cavalry in the first turn was superior and totally outwitted my poor generalship. This next picture I just mainly did for you guys, just a little bit of education. You can see starting from left to right, we've got some French in line, then three French squares, another French line, and then finally another final French line going across the top there. So the dice represent the number of dice they will get to roll for firing. You can see on the far left side, each base on the outside get one dice, and then the two center base get two dice. And then on the squares, each facing gets one dice. The battalion kind of slightly occluded by the hill. We figured out that one of the bases, I believe the far right one, is unable to. Oh no, no, we were able to. No, I'm sorry, we were able to. They were able to fire full effect, and then you can see that other line coming in on the far right. Prussians are in a little bit of trouble, as much as the Saxons were on the west side. The Prussians are facing the same problem with the French. Here, the Austrians have pushed all the way to that east-west road and have pushed the Bavarians back in line. The Bavarians stated, my CNC's stated goal was to offer battle in the open to try to keep them out of the town. And allow some Bavarians to really hold and occupy the town. Nevertheless, there were some heavy guns that were pounding him in the town, and so they would ignore cover. And they did okay. I think they destroyed one battalion inside a garrison in this closest little village square. Regardless, the pretty balanced game over here with armies acting the way they're supposed to and battling it out in line. Starting to have some pretty heavy action over here on the west side. These are the backs of the Saxons facing the Russian onslaught, who you can see have pushed through the town. It was the Saxons suffered the heaviest losses of the entire French and her allies contingent. Here are the backs of the Saxon cavalry facing down a a regiment of, I think they were Russian hussars that had to turn, and then they had to redeploy their artillery out of my reach. And so this was really my only tactical victory through the whole Western theater, was getting those guns redeployed and moving back to the eastern portion, the Bavarians have a very strong presence with multiple squares in the town, but getting really ready for close action and to lose that side of their theater. Here we have some French and Prussians going after each other, and if you'll notice there in the back, Prussians don't have a camp anymore because of the French infantry. I'm sorry, French cavalry. In the western side, it's pretty much a lost cause. The Saxons have retreated to try to hold the bridge, but really the Russians are left with command of the western portion of the battlefield. This was a fantastic game of good friends, good food, and good playing. There was super experienced Napoleonic war gamer playing the Russians, but his first time ever playing LaSalle, his generalship definitely showed through. Um, and two folks that are pretty new to Napoleonic war games, but one is a very experienced and competitive Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Warhammer 40K player, but it was his first Napoleonic war game ever, and he said he really enjoyed it. The final tallies are as follows. The Allies ended up owning only the western town for 2 victory points. They've pretty much routed the Saxons, and if it would have continued, they would have stormed the bridge with the bridge assault rules and then pushed up onto the plateau to assist the very ailing Prussians. Nevertheless, at game end, the Saxons were able to charge on that western bridge for 1 victory point, and the French were able to divert a single group of cavalry for, infantry for 1 victory point on that far eastern bridge as well, thus tying it up. But unfortunately for the Allies, the French held the heights worth 2 victory points, and the Bavarians held on to that eastern built up area or village also for 2 victory points, giving the total 6 victory points versus 2 for a game end. I should mention, though, that the Allies were very close to sudden death victory, needing only, I think, 2 more battalions killed of the French and her allies. The Saxons were just decimated by the Russians. It was, it would have been more fun if he would have let me have a chance. But definitely contributed to the most losses was on that western side.
Thanks for tuning into another Sacred Mountain Battle Report. I hope you enjoyed it. Boy, we sure did. That was a great 3v3 club game. I really like the way that the CNC mechanic worked out. We allowed a 5-minute conference before each turn where the CNC can kind of give plans. Initially, I'd kind of hoped that the CNC wouldn't give orders during the game and it would just be during that conference. But it really limited the table talk and the banter, and so I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to go out and have fun, play with toy soldiers. Overall, I think the Allies probably would have won if it went on. The Russians just swept the Saxons from the field. We weren't really trying to hold the bridge. We were actually just basically trying to escape the Russians. The Prussians, with the loss of their camp, I think like turn 4, really dealt them a devastating momentum blow, along with all the skirmish value that the French and Bavarians had remaining. I think the Prussians were probably going to be decimated just as bad as the Saxons were if it went on, and basically leading off with a slugfest between the Bavarians and the Austrians on the eastern portion. Nevertheless, LaSalle, we're having a great time with it. Such a great beer and pretzels game. We haven't done that as advanced skirmishing rules yet, nor sharpshooters, nor partisans, but I think we're probably going to do a more historical battle for our next club game. I'm not sure how many people are going to be participating, but it will certainly include Austria and France, just because one person plays Austria and then we have some French. And we'll try to keep the miniatures to actually kind of button count a little bit. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We had a great time. Hope you enjoyed the battle report.